Vrindavan Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Madhav ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Shrotar Sutta Shri Srimad Abhaya Charnar Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Shrotar Sutta Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namane. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shri. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, titled, what is this title? Oops. Scheduled incarnations with specific functions. Text 11. Satre mama asa bhagavan hayashirasha atha sakshad saha yajna purushaha tapaniya varnaha Chanda Mayaha Makhamayaha Akhila Devata Atma Vachaha Babhuvuhu Ushatihi Swasataha Asya Nastaha. Satre mamamsa bhagavan hayashirashato. Satre mamamsa bhagavan hayashirashato. Sakshat sayajna purushastapaniya varnaha. Sakshat sayajna purushastapaniya varnaha. Chandomayo makhamayo khila devatatma. Chandomayo makhamayo khila devatatma. Vacho bhabhuvur ushati Swasatosya nashtaha. Vacho babhuvur ushati swasatosya nastaha. A lot of sas and shas and all. It's a little tongue twisting. Satre mama sa bhagavan hayashirashato. Sakshat sayajna purushastapaniya varnaha. Chandomayo makhamayo khila devatatma. Vacho babhuvur ushati swasatosya nashtaha. सत्रे ममास भगवान हयशीरशातो साक्षात् स यज्ञ पुरुषस्थपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती स्वशतोऽस्य नष्टः सत्रे ममास भगवान् हयशीरशातो साक्षात् स यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वसतोऽस्य नष्टः सत्रे ममास भगवान् हयशीरशातो साक्षात् यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वसतोऽस्य नष्टः सत्रे ममास भगवान हयशीरशातो इस ममास साक्षात् यज्ञ पुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः मखमयो मखमयो छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वशतोऽस्य नष्टः सत्रे ममास भगवान् हयशीरशातो साक्षात् स यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वशतोऽस्य नष्टः सत्रे ममास भगवान् हयशीरशातो साक्षात् स यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वशतोऽस्य नष्टः माताजी सत्रे ममास भगवान् हयशीरशातो यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वशतोऽस्य नष्टः सत्रे ममास भगवान् हयशीरशातो साक्षात् यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वशतोऽस्य नष्टः सत्रे ममास भगवान् हयशीरशातो साक्षात् यज्ञपुरुषस्तपनीय वर्णः छंदोमयो मखमयोऽखिल देवतात्मा वाचो बभूवुरुशती श्वशतोऽस्य नष्टः You could move a little bit, and the sunlight's hitting you all. Probably you can move forward if you like, or to the side there, whichever works. Okay. Word to word translations. Satre, in the sacrificial ceremony. Mama, of mine. Asa, appeared. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Hayashirasha, with his horse-like head. Atha, thus. Sakshad, directly. Saha, he. Yajna Purushaha, the person who is pleased by performances of sacrifice. Tapaniya, golden. Varnaha, hue. Chanda, mayaha, personified Vedic hymns. Makhamayaha, personified sacrifices. Akhila, all that can be. Devata, Atma, soul of the demigods. Vachaha, sounds. Babhuvuhu, become audible. Ushatihi, very pleasing to hear. Shwasataha, while breathing. Asya, his. Nastaha, through the nostrils. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Lord appeared as the Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is the personified sacrifices, and the hue of his body is golden. He is the personified Vedas as well, and the super soul of all demigods. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. Purport. The Vedic hymns are generally meant for sacrifices performed by fruitive workers who also want to satisfy the demigods to achieve their fruitive result. But the Lord is the personified sacrifices and the personified Vedic hymns. Therefore, one who is directly a devotee of the Lord is a person who has automatically both served the purposes of sacrifices and pleased the demigods. The devotees of the Lord may not perform any sacrifice or may not please the demigods as per the Vedic injunctions, and still devotees are on a higher level than the fruitive workers or the worshippers of different demigods. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utafpada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. So I'm going to take control of the TV. Okay. Jnanandamayam Devam Nirmalaspadikakritam Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe. So, this is a little difficult to read, I guess. Anyways, I'll read it out for those who can't see. So in the Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 16, Text 6, Srila Prabhupada writes, at the end of the millennium, ignorance personified took the form of a demon, stole all the Vedas, and took them down to the planet of Rasatala. The Supreme Lord, however, in his form of Hayagriva, retrieved the Vedas and returned them to Lord Brahma. When he begged for them, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, whose determination never fails. Purport. Although Vedic knowledge is imperishable, within this material world it is sometimes manifest and sometimes not. When the people of this material world become too absorbed in ignorance, the Vedic knowledge disappears. Lord Hayagriva or Lord Matsya, however, always protects the Vedic knowledge, and in due course of time, it is again distributed through the medium of Lord Brahma. Brahma is a trustworthy representative of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, when he again asked for the treasure of Vedic knowledge, the Lord fulfilled his desire. So, the incarnation of Hayagriva, like the incarnation of Lord Matsya, is something that is an incarnation that appears quite frequently in the material world. Supreme Personality of Godhead, when because he performs the function of maintenance, in his incarnations as Matsya and Hayagriva, he maintains the cosmic manifestation. How is the cosmic manifestation maintained? By Vedas. The Vedas is what Brahma used to create the universe. Without the Vedas, Brahma had no knowledge. Without Veda, there is no knowledge. Without Vedas, living entities are just asleep and dead. Not dead, but almost as if dead. The living entities are in ignorance. When the living entities become active, the Vedas are there. The Vedas are produced, and then different forms of material enjoyment come from the Vedas, and also the process of self-realization also comes from the Vedas. The method to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also delineated in the Vedas. So the Vedas contain paramount importance for followers of Vedic culture. Vedas are central. They're everything. Therefore, Brahmanas are given importance. Why are Brahmanas given importance? Because the Brahmanas learn the Vedas, they preserve the Vedas, they propagate the Vedas. And the foremost among those who preserve and propagate the Vedas is Lord Brahma himself, because Brahma received the Vedas when he first appeared. So that's so before we get to that, here the incarnation of Hayagriva is specially glorified for knowledge. But the reason he has a head of a horse. And another thing to note, as far as what I know, there are only two incarnations where Supreme Lord is half man and half animal. One is Hayagriva, half horse. We just read in the verse. It says, Hayashirsha, with his horse-like head. So only the head is like that of a horse, not the whole body. Whereas if you see the incarnations of Varaha in his entirety is a boar. You'll see he has a tail, his tail whips, and you'll see that description. He has a shining, tail that whips, and then Supreme Lord has hooves. It's stated in the Varaha incarnation. Similarly, you will see Matsya, the incarnation of Lord Matsya. It's a full fish. It's a gigantic transcendental fish. Supreme Lord appears in the form of a fish. Supreme Lord appears in the form of a boar. But when he appears as Narasimha and when he appears as Hayagriva, he has this half man, half lion. Even Hamsa is a full swan. Is a swan. Supreme Lord appears as a swan. And so Hayagriva appears with the head of a horse. And the Supreme Lord appears in the form of a horse because he appears to also show strength, determination. So therefore here, oh, that's not here. No, I think what we just read. Oh yeah. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, whose determination never fails. So Supreme Lord has that bala. He has that determination. Nothing can, come in the way of the Supreme Lord's will. So to indicate that, just like a horse, when a horse is charging, nothing can really come in its way. Once the horse has set its mind and is charging in a particular direction, it's very dangerous to come in its way. So the horse is known for that long-standing determination. Like you have other animals that charge also. A buffalo also charges, and it can be very dangerous. Hippopotamus can also charge. and yes, it can be deathly. When a hippopotamus charges, it will kill you. But the hippopotamus cannot continue for very long because it's got a big bulky body, and to keep the momentum going, it's not going to stay for very long. Whereas a horse not only has that determination, also has that strength. It can go on for a long time. Whereas, okay, you have animals like cheetahs that can go on, but it's not as strong as the horse. So the Supreme Lord takes this incarnation of Hayagriva to show that determination, and then of course knowledge. So Hayagriva appears from Shankarshana. Because why from Shankarshana? Because if you see how the the Chaturvyuha. So you have the first Chaturvyuha. You have, what is Chaturvyuha? Now Narayana. Shankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudev. So you have the first plenary Chaturvyuha. Where do these come from? Where do these four come from? They come from Balaram. Right? Balaram is Adi Shankarshana. He is Shankarshana, Supreme Shankarshana. So from him, you have the first Chaturvyuha. Then in that first Chaturvyuha, Shankarshana generates the second Chaturvyuha, which is again Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Vasudeva and Shankarshana. Then that Shankarshana in the second Chaturvyuha, now we have come to Vaikuntha by this time. The first Chaturvyuha is actually in Dwaraka. And the second Chaturvyuha is in Vaikuntha. So in this second Chaturvyuha, from Shankarshana comes all the other incarnations of the Supreme Lord. And so Hayagriva specifically comes from Shankarshana, taking the attributes of knowledge and determination of the Supreme Lord in his full opulence. He comes with knowledge and determination to show mercy to Lord Brahma. So now, here at the end of the millennium, what happens is ignorance personified, Ajnana, takes the form of a demon and steals the Vedas. So there are multiple versions of this, again, because what's the other incarnation that comes to say Vedas? Matsya. So Matsya and Hayagriva perform very similar functions. They perform very similar functions. What happens is this ignorance personified. Now this is also described in other texts, as you will see. This ignorance takes two aspects. There are two demons called Madhu and Kaitaba. This is very, those who know pastimes of Vishnu, he's always glorified as Madhu Kaitabhare, one who killed Madhu and Kaitaba. So Madhu Kaitabhare, and in the Venkatesa Suprabhatam, the prayers offered to Lord Balaji, their devotee prays that we have Madhu and Kaitaba within our heart. This Madhu and Kaitaba is sitting. The Madhu and Kaitaba are basically Rajas and Tamas personified. So there is a pastime where, and this comes in the Mahabharata, where Hayagriva, so what happens is Brahma is created, lotus is created. And what happens after that? So if you go to Brahma Samhita, what is it? 5, I noted it down. 5:23, yeah. Okay. So, on coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. So, Brahma just he's just come out. He's the only one that exists. There is the lotus that he's sitting on. There is darkness. Then what happens? Vacha purastas tasmai tasya divya saraswati kama krishnaya govinda he gopi jana ityapi vallabhaya priya vakhner mantram te dasyati priyam. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of the Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions: O Brahma, this mantra, Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. So here Saraswati comes as knowledge. So why Hayagriva? Because Hayagriva is source of Saraswati herself. Saraswati is energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Vaishnavas like to worship Supreme Personality of Godhead as the source of all energies. And in his incarnation as Hayagriva, Supreme Lord comes and bestows that same knowledge that Saraswati comes to give to Lord Brahma. So what happens is that Brahma, after meditation on this mantra, receives the Vedas from the, if he has darshan of Vaikuntha, then he receives the Vedas. And then what happens, so Mahabharata says, is that he just got the Vedas, and the Mahabharata describes the Vedas as being personified. So the Sri Vaishnavas look at the Vedas as being like four like small boys like Sanat Kumaras. Whereas in our Gaudiya line, photos. In our Gaudiya line, you'll see that there is this nice painting of Hayagriva, very beautiful painting. His neck is especially very beautiful. I don't know, I'm very attracted to the strong, neck of a horse. And here, Brahma is, begging the Vedas from Hayagriva. So what happens is, Brahma received the Vedas, and then, now he hasn't created, nobody is there, only Brahma is there. But two demons appear, Madhu and Kaitaba. And Brahma is like, who are these people? It's like, but they are basically Rajas and Tamas personified. And they come and they steal the Vedas, and they run away into the nether regions. So then Hayagriva appears, and he kills Madhu and Kaitaba. He gets the Vedas, and he gives it to Lord Brahma. So the reason is because, so where is that verse that we were going for? Okay, no, not this. Yeah. That was from it was here. Okay. So here, although Vedic knowledge is imperishable, within this material world, it is sometimes manifest and sometimes not. When people in this material become too absorbed in ignorance, the Vedic knowledge disappears. So this is how Vedas disappear. Vedas disappear when Rajas and Tamas, or specifically in this case, ignorance, Ajnana, comes, then Vedas become lost. So this is what, Krishna also refers to Sakale Neha Mahata, Yoga Nashta Parantapa. So people become too absorbed in ignorance and the Vedic knowledge disappears. And therefore, Krishna speaks of this Ajnana so many times in Bhagavad Gita. So some verses where, Ajnana, anybody knows? Ajnana. Tasmad Ajnana Sambhutam, Hritstam Jnanasinatmanaha, Chitvainam Samshayam Yogam. Nobody knows this verse, huh? Atishtottishta Bharata. Oh, I got the number wrong. Oh wait, this is Bhagavata, that's right. So, 442 I believe. Tasmad Ajnana Sambhutam Hritstam Jnanasinatmanaha Chitvainam Samshayam Yogam Atishtottishta Bharata. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So why did Brahma lose the Vedas? Because it is said in the Mahabharata that Brahma thought, I got the Vedas, now I am going to create with my potency. Then he lost it. He lost the Vedas. Because this Aham Mameti Bhav comes from the platform of ignorance. It comes from the platform of misidentifying oneself with the body. When this misidentification happens, we get all these doubts. We forget. You see, even we may know, right? We may know all these scriptures, we may know all these things, we may know what's in Shastra, but we don't have the potency to follow it. We become, this Madhu and Kaitaba, they come and steal the Vedas from Brahma. Although Brahma is in possession of the Vedas, he loses them to Madhu and Kaitaba. And the pastime signifies, and even in this pastime here, we'll read more actually of how Matsya and Hayagriva save Brahma from this demon called Ajnana, is the fact that as living entities, so where did this Madhu and Kaitaba come from? If they are personified passion and ignorance, Brahma didn't create them. Where did they come from? Huh? And at least Mahabharata says they are from Vishnu Maya. They are Maya. They come from Maya. That is, just because Brahma didn't create doesn't mean that mode of passion and ignorance doesn't exist. Mode of passion and ignorance existed. They took the form of personified Vedas, personified passion and ignorance to warn Brahma that we are here. Okay, and you are capable of being influenced by this because you are a conditioned living entity. And as conditioned living entities, we are nothing in front of Maya. We are just, no, we are nothing. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Daivi esha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mameveye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. That this divine energy of mine, this illusion which is divine energy of mine, is under my control. And it's very difficult to overcome. But one who surrenders unto me can easily overcome this. So the point is, so Brahma, when the Vedas were lost, he surrendered. He prayed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he prayed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a helpless way, that I'm so foolish, what am I in front of your modes of passion and ignorance? What chance do I stand? What chance do I stand? Like what is the possibility of fighting your ignorance and passion? It is so strong. It is so strong that Brahma, the first living entity, who is the Acharya of our parampara, who literally he just had darshan of the spiritual world. He had darshan of spirituality, darshan of Krishna, everything. He got the Vedas, but of course he is still in the material world, engaged in a material activity of creation, and he became influenced. So the living entity should never forget the power of Maya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead's Maya. And only Supreme Personality of Godhead is not influenced by this. Only Supreme Personality. And in Hayagriva, as the incarnation of Hayagriva, he comes and blesses his devotees to become free from the modes of passion and ignorance. Specifically ignorance. Ajnana. So therefore Krishna, uses, many times he uses these words, 10, 11, what was that? Tesham evanu kampatam aham ajnana jamtamaha. Nashayami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhashvata. To show them special mercy, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So Hayagriva comes to destroy that ignorance. Sri Hayagriva comes, to destroy that ignorance. And then other verse where Ajnana is used, this demon, Ajnana. Tamastam Ajnana Jamvidhi Mohanam Sarvadehinam Pramadalasya Nidhrabhis Tanni Badnati Bharata. This is description of ignorance. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness born of ignorance is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. Note, listeners of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and then Krishna defines this ignorance a little better in the divine and demoniac natures. Text 13. Idam adya maya labdham imam prapse manoratam idam astidam apibe bhavishyati punardhanam. What is that next? Asau maya hatash shatrur hanishye chaparan api ishwaroham aham bohi siddhoham balavan sukhi adyo bhijanavan asmi konyosti sadrisho maya yakshe dasyami modishya iti ajnana vimohitaha. This is so, iti ajnana vimohitaha. In this way, living entities are bewildered by ignorance. How? What do they talk? They say, demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer, I am perfect, powerful and happy. I am the richest man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, persons are deluded by ignorance. So ignorance is all elaborated. Krishna describes it very nicely over here. Any one of these characteristics also display ignorance. And therefore this ignorance is very dangerous because it completely bewilders us. It makes us lose sight of who we are. We lose sight of what is beneficial for us. And Sri Hayagriva comes to bless us, to free us from this. So this is Lord Hayagriva. And then Krishna so compassionately asks finally in Bhagavad Gita, Kechid etat shrutam partha tvayaika grena chetasa. Kachid Ajnana Sammoha Pranastaste Dhananjaya. O son of Pritha, O conqueror of wealth, have you heard this with an attentive mind, and are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? One who does not hear with an attentive mind cannot have his illusions and ignorance dispelled. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He asks Arjuna, did you pay attention or did you fall asleep when I was reciting Bhagavad Gita? If you fell asleep, then probably ignorance and illusion still remained. So it's kind of interesting that Krishna asks Arjuna, did you pay attention? It's an interesting point, More like it's for us because they're having a conversation over there and he's front of, there's only one person he's speaking to. If you're speaking to one person and that fellow falls asleep, that's really insulting. So Krishna is stating that not because Arjuna fell asleep, it's because we who are reading this right now are falling asleep. So, okay. Then, so this, those who are in the mode of passion and ignorance, the demons, non-devotees, they cannot understand Krishna. And this is a very, very, very important point to understand. So, going to some more quotes from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a nice compilation in this website. Found this. Oh, the numbers are wrong on this, huh? Oh, okay. I just saw this and I thought, okay, I'll just read from this. Okay. Once at the end of a previous kalpa, a demon named Hayagriva wanted to take the Vedic knowledge away from Lord Brahma at the time of annihilation. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took the incarnation of a fish at the beginning of the period of Swayambhuva Manu and saved the Vedas. So this is again an interesting pastime where there is a demon named Hayagriva. So this demon Hayagriva at the end of a kalpa, again demons are all influenced by the mode of ignorance. So sometimes ignorance personified comes, sometimes a living entity personifies that and goes and steals it from Brahma. So how does this actually happen? So in the next, the same chapter, Canto 8, chapter 24, at the end of Brahma's day, when Brahma felt sleepy, so if you fall sleepy, this is what happens, and desired to lie down, the Vedas emanating from his mouth, and the great demon Hayagriva stole the Vedic knowledge. Understanding the acts of the great demon Hayagriva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is full of all opulences, assumed the form of a fish and saved the Vedas by killing the demon. So what happens? Brahma, at the end of Brahma's day, Brahma yawns. He feels sleepy because that's when the end of the day comes. When end of Brahma's day comes, he yawns because he's going to fall asleep. And then that's the end of the day of Brahma, so there's a partial annihilation that happens. So at that time when he was yawning, the Vedas fell out of his mouth. So then he's like, oops, the Vedas fell out. So then this Hayagriva demon comes and steals the Vedas. And then in one incarnation, Matsya comes to kill this Hayagriva. Now, the incarnation that we read of in the Bhagavatam, there is Satyavrata, Muni, and he's instructed to collect all the herbs and everything like that, and then Matsya takes them all on a boat ride in the waters of the devastation. But as I said, Matsya and Hayagriva appear very, very regularly. They almost appear, they appear every day of Brahma, sometimes multiple times in a day of Brahma. So therefore, in this particular incarnation, what happens? Hayagriva, the demon steals, and then Krishna in the form of Matsya kills this demon Hayagriva. Why is this demon called Hayagriva? Because he also had a head of a horse. And there is a bogus story found in a bogus book called Devi Bhagavata. So this Devi Bhagavatam is a book that was compiled later. It was primarily compiled in Bengal. Why was it compiled in Bengal? Because they worship Shakti, they worship Durga, and they like to consider Durga as supreme. So this whole Devi Bhagavata was not written by Vedavyas. It has 13 cantos. It has 13 cantos, and this Devi Bhagavata they say it is a Purana, but in the list of Puranas that are found in the Padma Purana, you do not find Devi Bhagavata. And Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam is referred to in multiple Puranas. But this Devi Bhagavata is not referred to anywhere. But yet these people, at least in these people of Devi, who propound Devi Bhagavata, they say, they are the ones, actually, they are one of the people, prominent ones, who say that this Srimad Bhagavatam was not written by Vyasadeva, but by somebody called Vopadev. So this, they just made up some name. It sounds like Vyasadeva, so he come up with a name called Vopadev. So, and so in that Devi Bhagavatam, there is a story, just so you kind of see how they, in this Devi Bhagavatam, the story goes that there's this demon, Hayagriva, who, it's a strange story. So he became so powerful by worshipping Durga. And he has a half head, is a head of a horse, and human body. And he gets a boon that only somebody who's Hayagriva can kill him. So therefore what happens, but anyways, Vishnu is supposed to kill the demon, so he comes and he's trying to kill, but he cannot kill because, this demon has got a boon from Durga. And so what happens is, Vishnu has a bow, and so he becomes tired and he sits down, and then Durga, in the form of a bee, strings that bow and breaks it. And then the string of the bow, it's such a big bow that when it snaps, it creates this loud, sound, and the string, swings around and cuts Lord Vishnu's head. And then everybody, all the demigods are very perturbed and this and that. And then Durga says, no, don't worry. This is all my Maya. And you just go get a horse head and put it on Vishnu. And so they put a horse head on Vishnu, and Vishnu kills Hayagriva, because Hayagriva has this boon, demon Hayagriva has a boon that he can only be killed by someone who has a head of a horse. So Vishnu kills, and then Durga puts back Vishnu's head. And so this is the story. The idea when you get this kind of stories is that, see, Durga is supreme. She was able to bring Vishnu back to life. So this is the kind of stories that you find in these kind of, literatures which become very, and people learn these things and they're completely bewildered. They lose idea, and anyways, the story is a story. They feel happy reading these kind of things. So there is a demon Hayagriva, but he was killed by Matsya. Okay. Then at the end of the last inundation during Swayambhu Manu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead killed the demon named Hayagriva and delivered the Vedic literatures to Lord Brahma when Lord Brahma awakened from sleeping. So when Brahma falls asleep, he loses the Vedas. Then when Brahma awakens back up, then Supreme Lord comes and gives him the Vedas. And at the end of each kalpa, when the demon Ajnana steals the Vedic knowledge, Lord Hayagriva appears and preserves it. He then delivers it to Lord Brahma. At the end of the millennium, ignorance personified assumed the form of a demon, stole all the Vedas and took them down to the planet of Rasatala. The Supreme Lord, however, in his form of Hayagriva, retrieved the Vedas and returned them to Lord Brahma when he begged for them. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, whose determination never fails. And so I think that's, okay, yeah. So this is from the summary of the 18th chapter, and then they misquoted it here. So, okay, and then now in this verse that we just read today, what was that again? Bhagavatam 2, 7, 11, yeah. So there it says the Lord appeared as Hayagriva incarnation in a sacrifice performed by me, Brahma. He is personified sacrifices. When he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. So what sacrifice is being referred to over here? So for this I couldn't find in Prabhupada's purport, so had to take shelter of Sri Vedanta Desika from the Sri Sampradaya. So there's a very nice stotra composed by Vedanta Desika called Hayagriva Stotram. This Sri Vedanta Desika composed this and sought the blessings of Hayagriva before he took upon the position of being an acharya in their sampradaya. And Vedanta Desika according to the followers of Vedanta Desika and those who worship him, appeared at a time when the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya following Ramanujacharya was in great disarray and was in lack of a leader. There was a lot of confusion, and the original teachings of Ramanujacharya were in danger of being lost, and they were not being followed properly. They were, and plus there was a lot of attack from the Shaivite community. So the Shaivists and Buddhists were also attacking, and apart from that, soon after, the Mughals would also come and were on a rampage, destroying different temples in India. So Vedanta Desika appears at this point of time and restores the glory of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, and in a really, really amazing way. He was a very, very empowered Acharya, and so many wonderful prayers, such a wonderful story. I mean, there's it's a very inspiring story. Vedanta Desika is a very inspiring personality, and according to the followers of Vedanta Desika, Sri Vedanta Desika is the incarnation of the bell of Lord Vishnu. So Supreme Lord also has a bell, and so he's called Ghantavataram. So this Vedanta Desika, he composes this stotram. Why? Because for him to be an Acharya, for him to propound the Vedic text, he sought inspiration the same way Brahma prayed. That Brahma also prayed to Lord Hayagriva to deliver the Vedas, to deliver him from ignorance and passion, because the Jiva Atma, we are always subject to ignorance and passion, and only Supreme Personality of Godhead can save us from this. And therefore he prays to Hayagriva. So it's a very, very wonderful stotra. I'm only going to read certain sections of it, but it is in that stotra that this famous prayer is found, and it's called, of course, the standard prayer for Vedanta Desika, Sriman Venkatanatharya Kavitarke Kesari Vedanta Acharya Varyo Me Sannidhatam Sada Hridi. So then Vedanta Acharya composes Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmalaspatika Kritim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe. This is very, very famous verse. Many, at least kids are in India are taught this. I should blow this up. Huh? No. So, I meditate upon the Supreme Being, Sri Hayagriva, the embodiment of knowledge. Sri Hayagriva is an integrated form of knowledge and bliss. The one with a face and neck of a horse, who has a radiant, sparkling body like a pure white crystal. He is the abode of all learning. He is the first God of all knowledge. So, Hayagriva is worshipped for Vedas, and unfortunately, materialists worship Hayagriva for passing examinations and clearing tests. And one of the things my mother taught, and would write Shri Hayagrivaya Namaha, Shri Hayagrivaya Namaha, like about 12 times every day, for one whole year. So, anyways, so going to text. So here in this verse, you'll see that it says, when he breathed, all the sweet sounds of the Vedic hymns came out of his nostrils. So Vedanta Desika describes that. The Sanskrit is tough. It's beautiful and it's tough. So I'm just going to read the English. Sing the glories of the radiant Sri Hayagriva, who formed to banish the worldly afflictions of his devotees. His auspicious image is akin to pure white crystal. Sri Hayagriva radiates the white rays that resemble lustrous nectar, thus making all the three worlds white, rendering them pure. He bestows his grace upon all three worlds. The hala hala sound emanating from his form as a horse, as a neighing, is that how you say? Neighing sound that contains the essence of the Upanishads and the tones of ornamentation in his legs. The neighing is echoed by the Vedas consistently. Sri Hayagriva's neighing, the Hesha Hala Halam, removes inauspiciousness and sins, as well as obstacles from one's path. Pray to Sri Hayagriva to remove misfortune, to gain the ability to hear his auspicious neighing that acts as a soothing balm for one's mundane afflictions. So this is how, that neighing sound. And he goes on to describe this Even further, the neighing sound of hala hala emanating from the divine throat of Sri Hayagriva are the collection of the Sama Vedas, the condensed meaning of the Rig Vedas, and the essence of the utterance of the Yajur Vedas. The form of Sri Hayagriva itself is the essence of mantras as they are embedded in him. The Haya Haya sounds are the remover of all obstacles that stand in the way of any individual wanting to acquire pure knowledge. They are like the ceaseless waves from the ocean of true knowledge. They light the lamp of knowledge and illuminate our path towards moksham, salvation. The very sounds of the hala hala dhwani dispel the inner darkness and confusion arising from the fallacious arguments by vain disputants who distort the truth of the Vedas. The innocent and vulnerable are rescued from the noise made by the proponents that defend their illusory opinions. The divine sounds of the neighing destroy the dark clouds that block our consciousness and a real understanding of the principles and release us from the cycle of birth and death. So, Vedanta Desika is a heavy, forceful acharya. It's really ecstatic. So, you see, we recite the Bhagavatam verses. The Bhagavatam is Nigama Kalpataro or Ghalitam Phalam. So it is the essence of the Vedas. These sounds, we recite Bhagavatam, we recite Bhagavad Gita. These sounds, they have that purifying effect, as he's saying here. The very sounds of the hala hala dhwani dispel the inner darkness and confusion arising. These sounds purify us. Why? Because they emanated from the throat of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are his transcendental sound vibration. Therefore they purify. Otherwise, how can they purify? They are sounds that came from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because they are transcendental sounds, they purify our hearts. And therefore, we recite these Bhagavatam verses and like that. And the Vedas, they have that auspiciousness. And therefore, Brahmanas would just chant Vedas. They would just chant. And just chanting itself is considered as sadhana. It is considered as something, very pure. And therefore, chanting is very nice. And Prabhupada also, you'll see, for instance, Ishopanishad, you'll see these recitation. Prabhupada wanted his disciples to learn that. And to learn to recite shlokas, to learn to recite verses is important. It's very, very important. It purifies us. As we go about our day, when we recite these verses, even though we may not perfectly understand their meaning, we should understand the meaning as well. But the recitation in itself is glorious. And therefore, this culture, Prabhupada was very happy when he saw that devotees were trying to learn verses, they were trying to quote verses, and this is because this all came from Sri Hayagriva. It's his wonderful hala hala sound that emanates from his throat. Okay, text 7. I'm going to just skip this. This is a big stotram here. Okay, maybe so Dakshinaya Ramya Girish Dakshinya Ramya Girishasya Murtihi Devi Sarojasana Dharma Patni Vyasadayopi Vyapadeshya Vachaha Spuranti Sarve Tava Shakti Leshaihi. So here, we can learn some pastimes of Sri Hayagriva because there's so little known about him. Sri Hayagriva is the God of all knowledge and learning. He is the eternal source. One of the foremost beneficiaries who obtained divine knowledge from Sri Hayagriva was Dakshinamurti. Who is Dakshinamurti? Huh? No, not Dakshina. Dakshinamurti is said to be I've heard, I didn't do my research here, so I could be wrong. But Dakshinamurti is a form of Lord Shiva. And he is worshipped by Shaivites. He sits under a banyan tree. And you will find Dakshinamurti in every Shiva temple. Standard, especially in the south, where they have Shiva temples, elaborate Shiva, you will find Dakshinamurti. And people pray to Dakshinamurti for knowledge, because he propounded knowledge. And but here, Vedanta Desika reveals that Hayagriva gave that knowledge to Dakshinamurti. Dakshinamurti didn't sit under a banyan tree and give that knowledge by himself. So, he taught the highest truth as absorbed from Sri Hayagriva to the four eminent older sages, Agastya, Pulastya, Daksha, and Markandeya, through the medium of silence. Dakshinamurti is also, those who worship Dakshinamurti, they take Maunavratas. Also very popular, because he was silent and he taught the knowledge to Agastya, Pulastya, Daksha. Goddess Saraswati, the divine knowledge, divine source of knowledge and consort of Brahma, whose abode is the white lotus, and the mighty sage Vedavyas, all derived their divine speech from a minuscule fragment of the power of Sri Hayagriva, who is the epitome of knowledge. Sri Hayagriva is the supreme source of divine knowledge. Great and eminent ones owe it to him for even the fraction of knowledge for which they have been empowered. And then it said here, as I should skip the Sanskrit. Sri Hayagriva is the treasure house of all knowledge. He gave divine advice on the Vedas with meaning on obscure details to Brahma, who lost the Vedas to two asuras, Madhu and Kaitaba, in his moment of distraction. At a total loss, Brahma did not know how to act. God's empathy for Brahma's plight moved him to recover the Vedas and re-instruct Brahma on the Vedas and their meaning once more. Hayagriva acted in time to restore Brahma's fortune and status as the creator, failing which he would have been incapable of performing his duties. Brahmadeva prayed to the Supreme Lord to intervene so that he could have the fortune and blessing of being able to continue his duties of creation. God answered Brahma's prayers and restored his divine knowledge. So we also have several duties to perform, but when we are in ignorance and passion, we don't perform them. What do? We become bewildered, we become ignorant, we become lethargic, we become lazy, we become influenced by desires to speak nonsense, waste time, insult devotees or whatever, all sorts of crazy things, become lusty. So in this way we lose sight of our duties, we lose our knowledge. So Brahma also in a moment of distraction, and we are so capable of getting distracted, we are always distracted. And Brahma, he was embarrassed, he couldn't perform his duty anymore. Sri Hayagriva came and saved him. So Sri Hayagriva can protect us from those distractions. Sri Hayagriva can bless us to continue our duties. We also have important duties to perform to our spiritual master. We have important duties to perform. Even devotees who have to take care of their family, children, etc., they have to perform these duties, and there are so many challenges, so many distractions. Mode of ignorance and passion is rampant everywhere. Madhu and Kaitaba are sitting right within our heart. Where is the hope? Sri Hayagriva is the hope. He comes, he is compassionate. Yes, Brahma was distracted, but he was compassionate upon Brahma, and he gave him. So Hayagriva is very merciful. So, and then, so this is also very nice verse here. Sri Hayagriva of the supreme knowledge steadied the Devaguru Brihaspati from deviating from the righteous path. So there is a pastime here. Brihaspati is the great teacher and the son of Angirasa Prajapati, one of the 10 offsprings of Brahma's mind. He is known for his great intellect and power of speech and is expert on astronomy and astrology. Who is Brihaspati? The guru of the demigods. Okay. So, but what happened to Brihaspati? Of impeccable ancestry and progeny. So Brihaspati is son of the mind-born son of Brahma. Right? So Brihaspati is such an exalted birth. And progeny, at one time Brihaspati got himself into trouble while interpreting the Dharma Shastras. He authored Brihaspati Samhita, an extensive collection of his teachings for the Devas. His mind started oscillating and he was so confused that he ended up creating a worldly system that completely denied the existence of God. Can you imagine that? Is that amazing? That Brihaspati was so bewildered that he ended up creating an entire universe where God was being denied. So Sri Hayagriva intervened and stabilized Brihaspati's mind, putting him on the Sattvic Marg, the path of righteousness. Sri Hayagriva went on to save both Brihaspati and his followers from going down the wrong path. So Brihaspati, Guru, was going to turn the demigods into demons. That's what he was going. And from what? From the Dharma Shastras, which come from the Vedas. Right? And his timely intervention prevented the demigods of the Devas from wild oscillations and falling under the influence of the Asuras. Brihaspati was saved from wrong logic and regained his divine knowledge. He accepted Sri Hayagriva as his timely protector and benefactor. So we also have to remain loyal to Srila Prabhupada's teachings. We have to remain loyal to our acharyas. And there are so many influences. And our minds are oscillating all the time. And swinging from this direction, that direction. So much confusion happens. But Sri Hayagriva comes and stabilizes. He can stabilize us. So we have to take shelters. Just see how Vedanta Desika, so amazing, how he is taking shelter of Hayagriva. Acharyas follow by, they set the path by example. They show what is that? What's that verse in Bhagavad Gita? Yad yad acharati shreshas tattat evetaro janaha. Sayat pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate. So Vedanta Desika, being Shrestha, being a wonderful sadhu, being associate of Supreme Personality of Godhead, sets the standard. So Sayat pramanam kurute, he is pramana. So you see how he is worshipping Hayagriva. So then, there's a lot here. So that yajna that we were talking about, so that comes in this verse. While conducting a yajna, the person performing the sacrifice calls upon the devas to receive their shares of havis. So when you perform yajna, you call upon different devas and you offer oblations. And the havis is what you put, it's cooked grains that are offered along with ghee and are put into the fire, and that is the food for the demigods. That is their sustenance. And so different demigods get those havis. The devas called by name come forward and put their hands forth directly to receive the share of havis through the agency of Agni. Agni is the person who is deputed to give all this. At most times, Agni Devata comes as the representation for the Devatas. He acts as an intermediary, receiving the havis from the yajna. So then Brahma is performing yajna. In the yajna performed by Brahmadeva atop Hastigiri, this is what is being spoken in the Bhagavatam verse today. Sri Hayagriva himself appeared in the form of Varadaraja amidst the towering flames of the fire of the Yajna Kunda, place for the sacred fire. He received the havis directly, which made Brahma very happy and fulfilled. The Devas had arrived and assembled as their names were called. When they stretched out their hands, the havis eluded them, because the havis went to Sri Hayagriva. Sri Hayagriva accepted the sacred offering directly, and Brahma explained to the Devas that he was performing a special yajna and his motive was very specific. Sri Hayagriva received the havis directly and distributed it to the Devas. When he gifted the Devas the tasty havis, it gave them complete contentment. So this is what is being referred to in that verse of the Bhagavatam. By mercy of Vedanta Desika, we are able to understand that. Okay. Text 16. Text 16. Okay. The devotees of Sri Hayagriva, so what happens when you worship Hayagriva? The devotees of Hayagriva experience great joy when they focus their attention on his pure form. They meditate upon him without letting up. Deep in meditation, they have the delightful experience of being flooded in nectar. The joy of experiencing God in the deepest core of their hearts makes their hairs stand on end. Their contemplation of Sri Hayagriva raises hairs as roots in their heart, which later take life externally and sprout on the limbs where they stand on end. The heart is the core and the source of a being where happiness is experienced. Tears of joy and the happiness that sprouts from the inner soul to the external limbs are a symbol of the blissful experience. So Vedanta Desika is going into the specifics of how even hairs stand upon end. He says, heart comes and they take root, and then the roots fructify, and then the hairs stand on end as if leaves that stand erect when a seed has fructified into a plant. So very poetic, extremely poetic. Okay, then text 18. So the ones who are fortunate to experience Sri Hayagriva are truly evolved and connected to the Supreme Being. The wise ones place their minds at the feet of Sri Hayagriva. They become glorified in their greatness. So concentrated are the feet of Sri Hayagriva that they gain immense strength. The devout pray to Sri Hayagriva, confirming their complete surrender unto him. They seek his help to cross Maya illusion that flows without beginning or end, that denies them the true version of God. The knowledgeable devotees cross the line of Maya that hypnotizes humans just the way a magician would captivate his audience. Sri Hayagriva bestows blessings on his ardent devotees to transcend this difficult Maya seamlessly. God has the Maya, which is a great power that he projects, from whose grip no one can escape unless he gives his blessings. God appears, observes the level of bhakti in his devotees that melts his heart, and he helps them cross his Maya. Okay, and then finally moving to, this is a really good one. And then there's a few more verses I want to read. So this is how Brahma sets our fate, right? Brahma Deva encodes the Brahma Lipi. Lipi is basically a script. And so there are different types of, scripts. So Lipi. So Brahma Lipi is the script of Lord Brahma. Fate on a person's skull when one is born. The person's life follows those instructions. The Brahma Lipis for a devotee in pursuit of moksha, salvation, interfere with his meditation and penance he carries out. The life of such a person thus experiences the cycle of birth and death, and perception of attainment of supreme blessings or salvation recedes further and further away. So, one who's aspiring for liberation, this fate that Brahma has written in the form of karma, that's in our skull, it interferes with our ability to become self-realized, right? What is that? Our samskaras, our inclinations, the vasanas, all this, what happens? It tempts us. It tempts us to our previous bad habits. We don't want to do it, but we get dragged. And therefore, Vedanta Desika is saying this, what does this do? It stops them and it puts them back in the cycle of birth and death again and again. And then he says, however, by the power of the sacred dust on the lotus feet of Sri Hayagriva is incomparable and is found on the heads of Brahma and other devas who can then overcome their misfortunes. So even Brahma has that on his head. The access to the sacred dust of the lotus feet could change the fate of the human being. So this dust erases that fate of that Brahma Lipi, the script that's on our skull. And may the power of that dust, sacred dust, settle on the heads of the devotees permanently and erase the Brahma Lipis, making them untenable, as the sacred dust has the power to completely eradicate the Brahma Lipis written on one's skull. May the devout attain moksha, salvation. So very wonderful verse. And then finally, this is again very inspiring, because Vedanta Desika is an inspiring acharya. So he says that the devotee prays for the divine glances of Sri Hayagriva to grant him the powers of praising him. The stotrams of the Vedas sound like the nectar of heavenly music to the ears of the devout. May auspiciousness descend on those who recite the stotram. Sri Vedanta Desika, the composer of the Hayagriva stotram, prays to God. We use the word Lord, and anyways, to empower him with divine speech to create poems through God's eternal grace. He implores God to shower his blessings upon him as he readies for debates, and prays to God to empower him with the Veda mantra so he can debate with clarity and strength of mind. He prays that the nectar of the Veda mantra stream into the ears of the devotees and bless them to realize their desires. Sri Vedanta Desikan prays for the boon of mastery over his speech and the power to win debates with those assembled, master poets and logicians. You see what he's readying himself up for. Very, very difficult task. Then he says, Sri Vedanta Desikan here prays for the power of speech so that he can win over poets and logicians. He seeks the blessings of Sri Hayagriva to join the battlefield of contestants, where very learned scholars will mediate the debates. Mediate the debates. He seeks blessings to win over the representatives of the great matams, religious centers. He prays for the power of the Vedic mantra so that will establish the truth. He implores Sri Hayagriva that he may succeed in his efforts to protect the Siddhanta ideology, and prays that God sits upon his tongue to let flow the divine speech. God's presence is essential in a debate over rival ideologies. So this is Acharya, he's readying himself up for a great fight. Sri Vedanta Desikan seeks the blessings of Sri Hayagriva to meditate on his divine form. He seeks God's help to imbibe his attributes so that he may have oneness with him. This oneness is in oneness of desire, of course. He's a Vaishnava. He wants to chant the sacred mantra that can help him conquer the battlefields of debates with rival ideologies. He seeks to be a warrior and emerge victorious with Sri Hayagriva's blessings and have endless strength to argue debates. Once Sri Hayagriva sits on the tongue of Sri Vedanta Desika, the devotee goes into deep meditation and reaches a state of oneness with God. He performs the Hayagriva mantra in meditative repetition. It is Sri Hayagriva who wins these debates using Sri Vedanta Desika as an instrument. It's just amazing, just really, really amazing nectar. So, okay, further, more and more he says, I'll just read one more verse here. Sri Vedanta Desika appeals to Sri Hayagriva's compassion, stating his position to be hopeless and hapless, and that he qualifies the best for God's mercy and blessings. So this is, just see this mood. This we see in our acharyas also, right? What is that song? Patita Pavana Hetu, Tava Avatar, Mosama Patita, Prabhu na pai bear. Who sings this? Narottam Das Thakur. He prays to Lord Chaitanya. Right? Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatar. That you are the most merciful and you have come to deliver the most fallen. Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatar. Mosama Patita. Prabhu na paibe ar. I am the most fallen here. I am very, very fallen. Therefore I qualify for your mercy. Please save me. So Vedanta Desika also plays in the same way. He says, I am hapless, I am hopeless. I don't have any. And he says the devotee prays to Sri Hayagriva. Actually here they say devotee, but he calls himself the Bhakta. He calls him, that's how he kind of refers to himself. He says, this poor devotee, I'm praying to you. And devotee prays to Sri Hayagriva, seeking his blessings for a clear understanding of ideology so that he can be competent and ably defend them in debates. Sri Hayagriva explains his shortcomings to Sri Hayagriva. The devotee explains his shortcomings to Sri Hayagriva, stating that he has not devoted time to learn any knowledge or skills, nor has he accumulated any blessings by bathing in holy waters, nor has he rendered any help or excellent services to his teachers to attain their blessings. He appeals to God, who has infinite compassion and kindness, to welcome the hopeless and hapless with open arms. An individual with such limitations as himself, the devotee says he is best qualified to receive the mercy and blessings of Sri Hayagriva. Vedanta Desika had all of this. He did all of that. He pleased his teachers. He was born in a holy place. He bathed in holy places. He spent years studying the Vedas and Shastras and was an expert even before he composed this prayer. But it is for people like us. We have what have we done? First of all, we have not done anything good, and then on top of all that, we've done everything bad. So therefore, we pray to Sri Hayagriva. In that mood, we pray to Sri Hayagriva. So this is how our acharyas give us hope. Although they are not of this nature, they are so humble that they take that. That shows that they are not proud. But we are so fallen, but we are the ones who become proud. So this is our fallen condition. Okay, all right. So there's more and more and more. This is the last verse where he prays for blessings. Then he glorifies Hayagriva again. So I'll read this and I'll end here. Sri Vedanta Desikan seeks Sri Hayagriva's blessing so that any doubts he fosters in his mind about his ideology will be erased. He seeks God's benevolence to receive the true and real meanings that will be etched in his heart, that will remain steady and unshakable by brilliant logic, and will disclose the truth, putting to rest all doubts and mistaken perceptions about the truth. There would be scholars who would engage in debate with Sri Vedanta Desikan, who would have varying opinions but would be unable to attack the true meaning of his ideology. He seeks blessings from Sri Hayagriva to fulfill the services in support of his spiritual tradition. The melting heart of Sri Hayagriva has full compassion for the devotee, and he blesses him heartily to go forth and extol the virtues of the spiritual tradition upheld by him. So Vedanta Desika is praying to Sri Hayagriva that he may be a servant of the parampara, that he may be a servant of that spiritual tradition. And this tradition is very important. This tradition and culture is very important. The knowledge that we receive from our acharya is very important. It is worth life itself. It is worth more than life itself. There is no use to living if we cannot uphold those traditions. It's better to die. And therefore, Sri Vedanta Desika shows us the way in which we can worship Sri Hayagriva and in this way be a true servant of our acharyas. Our Guru, our specific spiritual masters, and Srila Prabhupada, all the way up to Srila Rupa Goswami and Lord Chaitanya. So I'll stop here and we'll end the class here. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu